welcome to my channel. My name's Angela and this is Devon Thread Tales. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to be going through all of my thoughts and ideas for the challenge that's on at the moment, which is Sew Phoenix September 25. I think I've got that right. I'm going to put the hashtag of it across the screen. It's being run by the very lovely Catherine, who is Silverton Makery, Rachel the French Seams and Sam So Let's Sparkle with Sam. These three ladies have decided to put together a really fabulous challenge that I'm really interested in, and for lots of different reasons, and I'll share that with you in a moment, where you recreate something that you have made from your sewing past. So what is the challenge all about? Well, I'm going to be putting up some images on the screen so that I can share very accurately what the challenge is about, but I'm going to quickly summarise for you. It is recreating something and showing how you've been able to improve your skills from when you first sewed it. So we're not talking about making something that maybe you made last week necessarily, although I guess you could do that. It's about making something that you made early on when you started sewing and showing how your skills have improved, which is a really nice thing to do for yourself, let alone sharing with everybody else, but to be able to look at something that you made previously and actually realise quite how far you've come on in your sewing skills and your techniques and things like that. And there are lots of different ways in which you could do this. Once you've made your make, you then can share it on Instagram throughout the month of September. It doesn't have to be the very end day of September, it can be any time throughout, and you can have as many entries as you like. And you just need to make sure that you tag obviously the three lovely ladies who've created the challenge and also the hashtag, which again, all of those images will be on the screen. Once you've entered, there's then a chance to win a fabulous prize, and there are so many fantastic prizes up for grabs. And again, I'll put some images up on the screen of the different sponsors that have joined in with this challenge and supported them. Like I say, there's a sewing vlogger tour going on, and yesterday it was the very lovely Lucy, who is the sewing gardener, and she is just absolutely lovely. I had the opportunity to meet her at the dressmakers ball a couple of years ago and sit on the same table as her. She's such a lovely lady, and I've bumped into her a couple of times since. So she will have shared her video yesterday, so please do go and check that out. And then tomorrow it's my very special and very lovely friend Karen, who is So Little Time, and she'll be sharing her ideas for this challenge tomorrow too. So I love the idea of this challenge for lots of reasons really. First of all, I think I am very guilty of saying this, and I'm sure lots of people have, where somebody might compliment you on something that you've made and you'll go, oh yeah, well, you know, it's not very good and there's this mistake with it and that mistake with it. Well, first of all, we should all stop doing that. We should just be proud of the fact that we've actually made something and that we're wearing it out in public. And the person that's complimenting you on it clearly didn't see the mistakes. So we need to all stop doing that. But we all have made things where we know they haven't been made quite right for whatever reason. So to help me remember all the different things about this, I have got my little notebook here and I've written a few things down. So I am going to be referring to this, so I hope you don't mind. So definitely in the past, I have been guilty of sewing something and not revisiting a pattern because I feel like it hasn't worked for me, or I haven't sewn it very well, and then I just kind of associate it with that and then haven't revisited it. So for me, I think this is a really good challenge for me to go back and look at patterns that I've done, because I know that my skill and my knowledge has definitely improved from the very first year or two of sewing, and I've gained skills. And those skills and techniques that I've gained have been through practice, they've been through talking and speaking to other members of the sewing community, it's been from reading different blogs or watching YouTube videos and vlogs on sewing, or going to different lessons and things like that. So I have gained the skills and the techniques that I have today from doing all of those things, but I know that there are still skills and techniques that I can pick up by still continuing to learn and improve, by going to lessons, by reading more vlogs and blogs and all that kind of thing as well. And I've definitely been guilty of not revisiting patterns because of having that association of, oh, it didn't go very well, so then, you know, just forget about it. But I love the fact that this challenge is making us go back and look at some patterns that have been incredibly popular in the past, or have, they are older patterns, it's really easy to forget patterns that have been around for a very long time because there are new shiny ones out, and everybody loves a new pattern, and I totally get that and understand that, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it is still good to go back and look at patterns that have been around for a long time, because there are some fantastic ones out there. So I've been trying to think about why some of the things that I have made in the past have gone wrong. So these are some of the things that I've listed down. First of all, I am really guilty of being far too excited and wanting to finish a garment in particular, because that's what I mainly sew, and being too rushed, or just not having enough patience because I've just wanted to get to the end of it. And when I am rushed or haven't got enough patience, there are a few things that I definitely do or don't do that means that my sewing hasn't been to the best of my ability. So it might be that there's a new technique in the sewing pattern that I haven't done before, and instead of practicing it, I've just rushed into just doing it on the garment itself, and then it's not quite gone right, or it's, and definitely some of the failures that I've had before, not failures, but things that I've done but haven't gone quite right, have been because I have not practiced a technique enough, or haven't had the experience enough in those techniques. I've definitely been guilty of scan reading, or looking at the pictures and thinking I know what the instructions say, but not actually taking the time to read them thoroughly, and so then mistakes are made because I haven't read the instructions properly. That's something that I have definitely now learned, is you read and make sure that you read everything properly. Definitely guilty of, in the past, really winging the fit on items, because I've always had this mindset of, I don't have very much time, so why would I waste my time making a toile of something, a practice run of something, when I could just make the garment? I'll kind of bodge the fit and it'll be okay. But actually, in the long run, that can end up taking way more time, because then it just doesn't fit at all. So you end up either not wearing that garment whatsoever, and then having to make it again, or not even revisiting it again. Whereas if you just made a very basic toile in the first place, then you could have made the item and make it fit, and it would be really nice. So I'm definitely in the camp of having bodged fit before, and things not fitting properly. And one of the items that I'd like to recreate, I will touch on this with this problem. Going back to not reading the instructions properly, the other thing that I've definitely made a mistake with in the past is not referring to useful blogs or watching YouTube videos where somebody has created the item that I'm making with some really useful tips and tricks and things like that. There is such a plethora of information out there on the internet, and we are so incredibly lucky that we have that. But again, because of being too excited or impatient or rushed and skim reading instructions and thinking I know better, that I haven't then taken the time to read things like really useful blogs that other people with experience and hindsight have provided for us. And I'm definitely making sure that I do that now. So the way in which that I would improve the way that I do things in the future, and certainly how I have in the last few years, is making sure that I don't do all of the above that I've just mentioned, making sure that I take my time, that I'm a bit more patient about things, and actually it pays off to make a toile, or make sure you read the instructions properly, take the time to read other people's blogs and watch vlogs and things like that, and listen to other people's experiences on the garment that you're making. One of the other things that I do feel is nothing to do with potentially my experience or my technique or skill level or anything like that, is some of the items that I make now in comparison to what I made when I first started sewing. They are improved because I have better equipment now as well. That's not to say that everybody has to go out and buy an overlocker, because that's the way you finish things off, and it's really nice. You can finish things off really nicely on your sewing machine as well. You don't have to have an overlocker. But for me personally, I do know that I feel like I have a better finish because of that. but that's not anything to do with my skill or the technique that I use. That's just down to the equipment that I've purchased along the way. So today I have 4 items that I potentially will recreate, things that I made from my sewing past that I think I would really like to try and revisit again. Now, I'm not going to be able to make all 4 of these in the month of September, and I'm hoping that I might be able to make one. But no matter what I do, because of this challenge, it's made me look back at some of the things that I've made before. And even if I don't make them in September, I would like to continue and make them in the next few months. So again, my trusty notepad here. So the first thing, I went back on my Instagram, and I'm really guilty of not sharing all of my makes on Instagram. I really need to go back and actually start sharing some stuff. But the very first dress and the very first garment I ever made was the Tilly and the Buttons Bottine dress. Now, I think this is actually a first garment for a lot of people. It is a really easy sew. Now, I don't know if the Bottine dress is still available, and it might be that it's not available in paper pattern anymore, but it's available in PDF. I don't know. I'll have to go and check that for you. And if I find out the information, I'll put it on the screen. So the Tilly and the Buttons Bottine dress is a grown-on sleeve, so there's no insertion of sleeves, so that's why, again, it's really easy. It's got a really nice scooped neckline, and it's an elasticated waist, so it's not much in terms of the fitting. It has pockets and then a little skirt that goes with it. Now, when I first made this, I bought some fabric from a local haberdashery, and I looked at the sizing, and this was one of the things that I got very, very wrong. I looked at the sizing and saw the positive ease that was in it, and as a new sewer and not understanding what all of that meant, I thought it looked far too big, so I definitely sized down. Now, at the time, I was slimmer than what I am now, but even then it was still just a little bit too snug, because I didn't understand about needing the movement around and all that kind of thing. Again, something that I've learned through time. So that garment I've kept. It's actually up in my cupboard somewhere. I don't wear it anymore, but I've kept it because it was the very first thing that I made, and I was so super proud of it. And that garment has such memories for me because it was the start of my sewing adventures, and where I am today is because of being able to make that. And I'm so grateful that I had the chance to make that, and that there was a pattern out there that was great and held my hand, etc. But because I didn't finish it very well, because I didn't size it properly, the seams have gone on it. It's, you know, a little bit awry, and I would love to recreate that because I think it's such a sweet dress and such a lovely garment to make, and I would finish the seams inside so much better now. I would size it properly so that I didn't stretch out the seams and break it, you know, that kind of thing. So that is a garment that I'd really like to recreate, and the improvements on that would be the sizing and the finishing off on the insides. So the next item is the Sew Over It Molly Top, and the Molly Top is from the very first ebook from Sew Over It. I made this and was so delighted, and I couldn't believe I'd made this top. I mean, I really was so chuffed with it. Again, you know, I see the joy in some of the ladies that I teach when they create something, and they're just in this disbelief that they've made it. And that's how I felt about the Bottine dress, and it's certainly how I felt about the Molly Top. When I first started sewing, I was so adamant that I wanted to sew with jersey fabric, and lots of people at the very start of me sewing said, oh, that's very difficult to sew with, you probably won't ever be able to do that. I mean, little did I know I'd be able to sew all the things that I can nowadays. So I made the Sew Over It Molly Top, and I did not understand about sewing with jersey fabric at all. It was the first jersey fabric I'd ever sewn with, and I feel like anybody from the outside, standing from a bit of a distance, would have gone, wow, yeah, that's really good, well done. But oh my goodness, it literally within a few weeks fell apart and I was so disappointed. But it was, again, the stitching I'd used. I think I hadn't used the right kind of thread, so it was very weak thread and it just fell apart. I mean, now all I ever use when I'm sewing garments is Gutermann thread, and I think I might have been using some kind of sort of craft thread or something, I don't know, but it literally fell apart and I was so disappointed. But it's such a lovely top, and I really, really wish that I'd known how to sew it properly, because the fabric I used was nice, etc. So that would be a really great one for me to recreate, because A, I'd be able to sew it properly now and hopefully it wouldn't fall apart. And also, again, like I mentioned before, some of the things that I've improved with, not because of my own skill or technique, is because of the equipment that I've bought. And I now have a cover stitch machine, and I'd finish off the sleeve hems and the bottom of the hem with my cover stitch machine, and it would just finish it off so much better. That said, you don't have to have a cover stitch machine. You can just use you know, a zigzag stitch, or you can use Maraflex thread for stretchy fabric. You know, all these things that now we have in our armour that we didn't have a long time ago when we were sewing. So yeah, different things, technique and equipment would improve that make 100%. The next garment I'd like to talk about is a simplicity garment, and this is a woven garment, although it can be made in woven or in stretch fabric. I've only ever made it once, and I've made it in a viscose fabric, I think it was. This was one of my absolute favourite dresses, and it is really lovely. It's a little bit too small for me. I didn't make it too small at the time. I'm just a little bit bigger now than I was when I first made it. But this had bias binding around the arm holes, if you like. I don't know how to say that. I know if it's got a sleeve on it, it's a sleeve, but what do you call it when it's not got a sleeve? The armhole? Anyway, so this is the Simplicity. Now, it used to be called the 1355A. It's now called the S9125. Now, a couple of things with this. First of all, in my impatience and excitedness to be able to make this, I cut the pattern out straight away. So like I say, I'm now a little bit bigger than I was when I first started sewing. So even if I wanted to make this again, the pattern would be too small for me. But I was very lucky, and I was having a quick scroll through Instagram recently and saw that Tamlin Sewn on the Time had this pattern in her destash account, and it's now called S9125. So this is what it looks like, and I made the dress version like this, and I have to say that doesn't look very appealing to me, but when I made the dress, and the images of it on Instagram are really lovely. I've seen lots of people that have made this, and like I say, the armholes had bias binding, and if I'm absolutely honest, I know people love bias binding and use bias binding all the time, but it's one of those things that I always kind of go a bit shy about using that. And it's only been in the last probably few months that I've got way more savvy with using bias binding. I like to make my own. I don't particularly use bought bias binding. I like it to match the garment that I've made and the fabric that I'm making it in. And when I have done bias binding before, and especially on this, I used like a cottony one, and but I was sewing with viscose, and it's just really wrong. It's sewn in wrong. It looks really strange. It's a bit wonky. And I know that if I sewed that garment now, I would sew it and the bias binding would go in really nicely and really neatly, and I would like to revisit the pattern again, because I know that my bias binding skills have improved. I know certainly the ladies that are running this challenge are big bias binding fans, so they'll probably have a fit to think that I have shied away from it in years gone by. So last but not least, the other pattern that I would really like to revisit, and in particular probably this one, because I think it's a really lovely pattern, and it's a pattern that's been around for such a long time, and it was so incredibly popular, which is what made me want to make it in the first place, and that is the True Bias Lander pants. Now, I've only made these once. I have some friends that have made them before. I've seen lots of images on Instagram of them. They are such a popular pattern, but there are so many different trouser patterns and things out there now. I feel like they've been forgotten about a little bit. But I do know that this is a really lovely garment, And I made them in a very cheap fabric because I wanted it to be my wearable toile. I didn't want to just make a toile because I didn't have time. I don't have time to make a toile. So I made them, and oh my gosh, they did not fit. But because I hadn't taken the time to make a toile, a proper toile, and I wanted them to fit me properly, I did the biggest bodge job you could ever imagine to try and get them to fit. I sewed up all sorts of different things on the inside. I mean, if you'd opened them and looked at them, you'd have been like that. Whoa, what's gone on there? And again, I now understand so much more of the importance of doing a toile. I also understand far more how to fit things, and I understand my body and how to get things to fit me. And I would absolutely love to be able to go back and try and recreate these. They come with a button fly, but there is an add-on pack where you can actually do it with a zip. I think I would do it with a button fly because that's how I did them originally. And again, I just remember, I haven't got them now because they were so awful, but I just remember I literally had the button fly, and because they didn't fit, I kind of like oinked a bit over and sewed that down, and then tried to like let that bit out and bring that bit in. Oh my gosh, it was such a mess. And I just know that now I would take the time to make sure that that worked properly and looked so much better. So I'd really like to do the land pants and get them to fit me properly, but I'll do a toile first. So I really hope that you've enjoyed sharing that with me and listening to my thoughts and ideas on the Sew Phoenix Challenge 25. I really hope to be able to make one of those items that I have suggested, and even if I can't do all of them in the month of September, which obviously I'm not going to be able to do, then I'm really hoping that I'll be able to get some more of them done over the next few months, because I think all of those patterns would be really lovely to revisit and be able to see my improved skill. I kind of wish I still had the lander pants so that I could look at how I had bodged it and then show the difference between the two once I make another pair. But never mind, you'll have to just take my word for it. So are you going to get involved with the Sew Phoenix Challenge? I really hope that you do. What patterns would you like to revisit, and how have you improved your skills and your techniques from the first time that you made whatever item it is that you'd like to recreate? Anyway, I'm going to say see you later for now. I hope you're all well. Have a really good week. Happy sewing. Bye.